In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?
Shalom, 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 shalom. First, I want to give you the praises and the glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kadash, and double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who are leading this word in truth and spirit and sincerity, and salutations to my fellow righteous Hebrew Israelite brothers out there that are plowing the fields, that are harvesting on the highways and hedges and on the different streaming platforms in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Shalom to those of you, brothers and sisters, that have been edified by the truth of the scriptures of who we are, the true children of Israel, the Israelites, and who the other nations are. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Today's edification is called the chariots, thy chariots of salvation. Thy chariots, which we know are the UFOs, of salvation. Of salvation of who? Of salvation for the Hebrew Israelites. Now, I'm going to play this interview, and I'm going to go through it, that from one of these Fox News channels. But before I do that, I'm going to put up this copyrights disclaimer under the section 107 of the Copyrights Act 1976. Copyrights disclaimer. Fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, and news reporting teachings, which is what we do in the name of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. So I'm going to go through this interview here. We're going to play some of it, and then we're going to stop it, and we're going to bring out some scriptures on the way. But I want you to listen to this interview that was recently taken. This was done a few days ago, this particular interview. All right, now this guy, you might have seen him before in other interviews, but I want to hear today's one. So this was done on the 24th of April, which was a few days ago. All right.
Newsmaker Saturday starts now. Joining us on Newsmaker Saturday. Do you believe we are being visited here on Earth? According to a Gallup poll, 4 in 10 Americans now think some UFOs that people have spotted have been alien spacecraft visiting Earth from other planets or galaxies. This is up from a third saying so 2 years ago. This number of believers has climbed because for the first time, the government is admitting this stuff and actually expressing concern over what they're seeing. Sightings of crafts that simply can't be explained by our current understanding of physics. Now, this presents 2 problems. Either our adversaries, namely China, have developed superior technology, or this stuff is otherworldly. Either way, the choices are, at the very least, troubling. Let's listen in to what Fox explored recently on this subject.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. Military pilots have reported bizarre aircraft popping up around sensitive national security sites, and so have commercial pilots.
We just had something go right over the top of us.
Intelligence leaders in Congress like Senator Marco Rubio are growing increasingly concerned.
We don't know who they are, don't know what it is. It isn't ours.
But if there's a good thing.
NASA Administrator Bill Nelson interviewed some of the military pilots who tracked them and then lost them.
They followed it, and then suddenly it would move in a direction faster than anything that they had ever seen.
The sightings picked up during the Obama administration.
We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory.
And then they picked up more through the Trump administration.
movements that that are hard to replicate, that we don't have the technology for.
And Trump's director of national intelligence suggested it's picked up more than the public's been told.
There are a lot more sightings than have been made public.
The Pentagon ordered the Navy to investigate, but as government leaders examined emerging classified intelligence, the Biden administration escalated the investigation by forming a new dedicated unit. While we don't know what they know, we do know they've been concerned this could be the work of an adversary like China or Russia. And with the sightings of our national security facilities, it raised concerns this summer that they could be spying on us.
Maybe it's a foreign adversary who's made a technological leap.
My gosh.
Sometimes we wonder whether or not our adversaries have technologies that are a little bit further down the road than we thought or that we realized.
There's something there. We just don't know what it is.
Do you think it could possibly be Russia or another foreign adversary?
That's why we need to find out. Because if there is an adversary with that kind of technology, then we definitely need to be very, very careful.
But over the past few weeks, lawmakers with access to intelligence have publicly moved away from that theory.
Well, I don't believe they're coming from foreign adversaries, and frankly, China and Russia just aren't there.
To something maybe out of this world.
If for some reason these came from another system, if you will, another alien society, that would make me more fascinated, not fearful.
Including NASA Administrator Nelson in this interview with the University of Virginia.
Who am I to say that planet Earth is the only location of a life form that is civilized?
Craig Patrick, Fox News.
Do you believe what you just heard? I mean, that is strong language from politicians. Joining me now is Jeremy, subject for some 20 years. Jeremy, great to see you again.
Good to see you again.
Okay, we've got guys like Bill Nelson.
So the question was, do you believe what you just heard? Well, we do. And we understand and we know what it is, what we saw, what we heard, and what they are. And we understand that mainstream media that continues to call these UFOs and UAPs, they keep going on talking about this thing being, aliens that are inside this. But we know that these are the angels of Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai, that are in these chariots, what they call UFOs and UAPs. Now, there's many prophets that have spoken about these chariots and their powers and their movements and how they move and what they can do and they can't do. All right? Now, Zechariah spoke about this in the book of Zechariah chapter 5 when he spoke about the flying roll. And I always say to you that a roll is the shape of a tic-tac because they called these chariots a tic-tac, right? And if we look at the shape of a tic-tac, that's what they refer to them as. They call them tic-tacs, right? And tic-tacs, so you can see, tic-tacs are like what we would call, right? They're like shapes of a roll, tic-tac, as you can see, all right? So that's why they refer to them as tic-tacs, because they're talking about like the shape of an actual tic-tac. And we know if we looked at like a, I don't know, say they call them subway rolls. Oh, all right. I just want to give you an idea. And this is what they said, right? They said it's a subway rolls, images, which are shaped like tic tacs, right? You got these rolls here, as you can see. They're shaped like tic tacs. All right, the roll is shaped just like a tic tac, as you can see, right? Now, we know that Zechariah, we're going to go back to the interview. I just wanted to show you this before we listen to what he's going to say. Zechariah chapter 5. Oh, stop doing that. Zechariah chapter 5 spoke about the flying roll. All right, the prophet Zechariah. This is what he saw, right, in a vision. He says, "Then I turned and lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a flying roll. a flying roll, right? That's the shape of a roll, right? Which is the shape of a tic tac. And this is what they're going to refer to what those UFOs, UAPs are, the chariots are. And this is what Zachariah saw, right? He saw a chariot that was the shape of a flying roll. That was the shape of a roll, sorry. And he says unto me, what seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying roll. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 10 cubits, right? So 20 cubits and 10 cubits. I believe a cubit is it a foot and a half? Just get it there. He said, I see a flying roll. I'm curious to see what it says here. Flying, the word flying, fly away, hover, to hover, fly away, to fly, light upon, to fly about, or to cause to fly, to brandish. Let's see what he says here for the word roll in the Hebrew, right? While we're here. We are going to go back to that interview because I wanted to see parts of the interview. Roll, all right? Book, a roll, writing. Okay, so it's like a scroll. So a scroll, like a book, a flying roll. So that's why he's saying that, right? So we looked at scroll, because books back then were considered scrolls. They didn't have such thing as actual books, but we know them as books today. An ancient book would be a scroll, as you can see. So he saw a flying roll, which is like a scroll. Can you see? And in a sense, you can see it's kind of shaped like a roll. Two parts of the scroll together. All right. Scroll again. All right, that's a scroll shaped like a roll. What we know as a roll, what they call tic tacs, right? This is what they were calling the UFOs, the UAPs, tic tacs. So he said he saw a flying scroll, flying roll, and the scrolls would normally have. So this is what he saw, right? That looks similar like a flying roll, which is a scroll, basically, right? So scroll, roll, book, writing. That's what it is. Volume. Roll of writing, book. That's what a scroll is. That's what a roll is. This is what Zachariah said. It's shaped like a flying scroll. All right. So if you put a scroll together, as you can see, there's many other ones that you can visually see as well. Like that. Another scroll there, as you can see. So that's a scroll once again. All right. So Zachariah says, I see a flying roll, right? Cubics. Let's see what it says for the length. 20 cubits, right? I think it's a foot and a half. Right, so it says, cubit is a measure of a distance of the forearm, roughly, 18 inches. There you go, 1.5 feet, all right? Just like I said. There are several cubits used in the Old Testament, the cubit of a man or a common cubit, right? The legal cubit or cubit of the sanctuary, right? Plus others. See a Bible dictionary for a complete treatment. I've got a Bible dictionary here, but have a quick look in my Bible dictionary while we're here. Just to see. Cubits. So I've got my Zondervan's Bible dictionary here with me. It's never far from me. Let's see what it says in here for cubit as well. C-U-B, cubic, cuttings, So we've got it in a cubit. See, weights and measures. It wants me to go to weights and measures. Measures, in it. So some measures. M-M-O. There we go. M-E-A. 1 second, family. I'm just curious what the Godly Bible Dictionary says. M-E. Wait, I want to go to weights and measures, or not just measures. M-E-C. Let's see. Yes. So I've got to actually go to the word weights and measures. Okay, so maybe it's go to UVWX. So like you family. Let's see what it says. Weights and measures. Okay, 2 spans. So it says the same thing here. Cubits, 2 spans of the forearm, inches, 18 inches. All right. So it basically says the same thing what we're seeing there. Weights and measures. What it says there in the blue letter. Just want to confirm what it says there. Anyway. So weights and measures. So this is what he said he saw, right? Before we go back to the interview. The length thereof is 20 cubits, right? And the breadth thereof 10 cubits. So 10 cubits would be roughly 10 times 10 feet, and that's about 15 feet, 20 is 30 feet, so 20 by 30 feet, all right? Then said he unto me, this is the curse that goes forth over the face of the whole earth, all right? Why is it considered a curse that goes forth over the whole earth? Because it's going to play 2 major parts in the day of judgment. One for salvation, and the other one is for the destruction. That's going to come upon the United States of America and many cities around the world and the nations. For everyone that stealeth shall be cut off as on this side according to it, and everyone that sweareth shall be cut off on that side according to it. I will bring it forth, says the Lord Yahweh of hosts, and it shall enter into the house of the thief. The house of the thief is where? Babylon the Great, the United States of America. Into the house of him that swears falsely by my name. That is the United States of America. That's the main house it's going to enter, because it's going to destroy America, these chariots, right? And it shall remain in the midst of his house, because it's going to totally destroy the United States of America, the Lord and the angels and the chariots, and shall consume it with the timber thereof and the stones thereof, all right? So this is what Zechariah saw, that these chariots, these UFOs, entered into the house of the thief, which is Babylon the Great, spiritually known as Edom, spiritually known as Sodom and Egypt, daughter of Babylon, into the house of him that swears falsely by my name, that's America. And it shall remain in the midst of his house and shall consume it, because it's going to totally destroy America, the chariots, right? It shall consume it with the timber thereof and with the stones thereof. Then the angel that talked with me went forth and said unto me, lift up now thine eyes and see what is that goes forth. So this is what he saw. This is what Zechariah saw. So let's go back to the interview. Where was we here? All right. Let's go back to the interview.
And then we've got Obama. We've got all kinds of people now saying, hey, we don't.
Don't freeze on me.
Is an unbelievable statement.
That's right. You know, people can believe in UFOs, but UFOs are no longer a matter of belief. You have now been told by your representative government a lot of details about how we study UFOs, that our military funded these studies, and that it's an ongoing phenomenon with an increased frequency that represents craft of unknown origin that are far more advanced. These craft, they infiltrate, for lack of a better word, into our restricted airspace. They fly with impunity. And this is a national security issue for some people. And for me, it's a much bigger existential issue. You know, who are operating these craft? Who made them? Where are they from? What is the intent of those who pilot these?
You know, the minute you dive into this.
That's Esau's question, right? He wants to know who made them, where they're from, and how they've been piloted, all right? Whereas we know from the scriptures that these are the Lord's chariots. These are the angels are in these chariots, and we know where they come from. They come from the heaven of heavens that you can't see with the naked eye or a telescope, right? That's where the Most High resides. That's where the angels are. That's where your spirits go after you die. You go back to the heaven of heavens. Remember, the Bible tells us that, right? It's Ecclesiasticus. It tells us that, right? This is where they come from. They go. This is where the chariots are coming from. We know where they're coming from and we know where they go back to. All right? They go right back to the place where your spirit goes. Ecclesiastes 12:7. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, which is your body. The dust goes back into the ground. And the spirit shall return unto Yahweh who gave it. So those chariots are going back to the same place where your spirit goes, where you die, to the heaven of heavens, where the Most High sits on his thrones, where the angels sit in front of the Most High and they're praising him. Is it Revelations? Let's see. I'm just doing this in the spirit today. I've just been in the mood lately to do a lot of these edifications, just doing them in spirit. Now, this is where the angels, where is it? Revelations chapter 4. This is where the angels sit in front of the Most High, right? Let's go to it. Revelations chapter 4. This is where they're sitting in front of the Most High. You see? The throne and the worship of the Creator. This is where they've gone to. Right to that place there. And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices. And there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of the Most High. All right? These are the angels. And before the throne, there was a sea of glass like unto a crystal. These are the chariots. And in the midst of the throne, and round about the throne, were 4 beasts full of eyes before and behind. These beasts are the UFOs, are the chariots that the angels are in. All right? And the first beast was like a lion, and the second beast like a calf, and the third beast had a face as a man, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle. Remember, Ezekiel spoke about these chariots when they came, when he was on the river Sheba, when the Israelites went to captivity under the Babylonians, right? So these are the chariots, what they call UFOs, that are in front of Most High with the angels. And the 4 beasts had each of them 6 wings about him, and they were full of eyes within, right? And they rest not day and night, saying, Holy, 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 Lord Yahweh Almighty, which was and is to come. And when those beasts give glory and honor and thanks to him that sat on the throne, who's sitting on the throne, Yahweh, the right hand side of him is Yahweh Shai, who liveth forever and ever, that's the Most High. The 24 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne. The 24 elders are the angels, and worship him that liveth forever and ever, that's the Most High, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. So who do you think created the chariots? The Most High, Yahweh Shai. Yahweh Shai would have done the works, really. Created the chariots, the angels, and everything. And then the angels, alongside the Most High, will continue creating more angels and more chariots. But it's the Most High's blueprints. He gives the word. So they're not once speaking about God in this interview, or the Most High Yahweh, or Yahweh Shai, or the Son, who they ignorantly call Jesus Christ. They're not once giving credit, right, to the Most High or Yahweh Shai for these UFOs that they are seeing. Esau is always looking for this to be some little green men, some little green intelligence, some people that have got their own far, intelligence that are 1,000 times more than ours, that did all this themselves. They never once gave credit to the Most High. What does the Bible says? Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory. We give the glory to Yahweh Bashim Yahushua when we see those chariots, because we know what they are. And honor and power. That's the Most High's power. That's showing his power. For thou hast created all things, including those UFOs and UAPs. It's not no little green men or some side, like some other nation of people living somewhere that's done this by themselves. This is the Most High's work. These are his angels. For thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. They're for the Most High's pleasure, because they're going to play a major part in the judgment, in the destruction, in the salvation, in the captivity. They're going to play a major part in these last days. So let's go back to the interview, all right?
People think you're a kook. You start going into this, but more and more, there are so-called credible people saying this is real. We don't know what it is, and we're concerned. Are you concerned about what it is, or are you more taking a position that
we're not concerned? We are rejoicing in what we are seeing. But listen to Esau.
Well, two things about that. One is that the stigma is dissolving. It's fading because of fact, because of science fact. We now have data, radar, visual. We have optics that track these things, radar systems. This is not fiction. It's not fantasy. The entire stigma is now dissolving when it comes to talking about these unknown objects, these machines that fly with impunity in our restricted airspace. I mean, this is a real issue. And now finally people are talking about it. As far as the question of concern, look, UFOs have been part of the human experience from as far back as we can see in recorded human history. If there was a nefarious intent, you figure that we would know by now. But the issue here is that anybody that's looking at this, such as our military, it is their job, it is their duty to protect the American public. So there is this sense of national security. There is this sense of assessing the threat and the potential. Whoever operates these craft are so far advanced that's why you hear officials saying, look, we're pretty much ruling out these are adversarial nations because people just aren't there yet. The technology we witness, with the performances we see, it doesn't represent a technology and a physics that we have yet grasped as humanity on planet Earth. So the UFO presence on planet Earth, it's as real as the nose on your face. Now, finally, we're being able to look at it without stigma.
Jeremy, this is a Tic Tac video, the famous Tic Tac video. You reported on it before anyone else, but this is the one.
Now, do you understand when I said that they referred to it as Tic Tacs? Because they are shaped like Tic Tacs, the ones that they saw. I'm not saying all of the chariots that the Lord's got are shaped like Tic Tacs, but the ones that the pilots saw, the US pilots and in the Navy and the Marines and that so forth, were shaped like Tic Tacs. And like I said, that goes back to what we said earlier. They're shaped like Tic Tacs, all right? The reason why Zechariah called it a flying roll, because what we know as a roll, what they call a roll, is a scroll, right? Which is shaped like a Tic Tac. As you can see, it has that sort of oblong shape, all right? That oblong shape like a Tic Tac, a flying roll. So when Zechariah referred to it as a flying roll, just so you understand, to go back again, the word roll, he's talking about a scroll, as we saw in the Hebrew, all right? We showed you earlier. The scroll is a book. There was no such thing as a book back then. Everything was written on scrolls back then. So the reason why it's showing you that a roll is a book is what we know as a book today, writing. But that's what it is. A book back then is a scroll, right? During those times, a book was a scroll. This is what you call a book, all right? So the scriptures were written on scrolls originally, just like what you see here. So what he saw was a flying scroll, which is shaped like a Tic Tac, as you can see. All right? So this is why they call it Tic Tacs. Let's go back to the interview.
Kind of got the ball rolling. And this craft does some really weird stuff.
Yeah, the first video you're showing, right, that is the Tic Tac UFO. You're also showing the gimbal UFO from the East Coast in 2015. The Tic Tac was in 2004. And then you're showing one called the Go Fast. All three of these have been confirmed by the Pentagon as being unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAPs or UFOs. The flight characteristics of these craft are so astonishing. The pilot that chased the Tic Tac UFO, the commander who filmed the Tic Tac UFO, they came forward to me and they detailed what they saw, what they experienced, what they encountered. What they encountered was a vehicle that was able to defy our known physics, its ability to move, to shoot off, to move at a 90-degree turn at unimaginable speeds. These tic-tacs, by the way, there were multiple, many of them. They were descending from above 80,000 feet, which is the height we know because that's the scan volume of the Spy 1 radar, down to sea level in less than a second and a half, like that.
Wow.
No sonic booms. How does this happen?
What's the working theory?
What I have to say, boy, I want to give all the praises and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah, Kadash. The power. That's what's coming, Israel. That's what's coming to deliver us. That's what's coming to take this man down, Esau. Exact power that he's telling you. That's what's coming, Israel. That power. All praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah, Kodash. Can't say enough. That's what's coming, Israel.
There's some kind of gravitational thing going on, right? Isn't that the working theory?
You nailed it. So there were all these reports that recently came out through FOIA. There were actually 38 of these reports. And 37 of those reports were about things like the propulsion system. It is theorized that these craft propel, for lack of a better word, through manipulating gravity. In fact, amplifying what they call gravity waves. So if this is true, if these craft are literally bending space and time through harnessing the mysterious force that we know as gravity, then we're talking about a technology that's not 100 years, it's not 1,000 years ahead of us. We're talking hundreds of thousands of years ahead of what we have here that we consider flight on Earth.
Unbelievable. All right. Now, you've got this OSAP.
So, I tell you, that's just the beauty of just listening to that, all right? He said, not 100 years ahead of us, not 1,000 years ahead of our technology. He said hundreds of thousands of years ahead of what anything we could have down here on planet Earth. I mean, who else could be responsible for that type of technology? Who else? But the Most High, Yahweh, and the Son, Yahweh Shai. Who else could be responsible? He said, not 100 years ahead of our technology. He said, not 1,000 years. He said 100. He said hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years ahead of our technology. He said the craft dropped from 80,000 feet, which is as far as their satellite could scan, they said, to sea level in less than a second. It said it defied gravity. It said it took gravity and did what it wanted with it. He said it defied everything we know about gravity. So, what did Ezekiel say? Oh, man. Brother Ezekiel. Ezekiel said, right? Oops. Didn't want to go 36. Yeah, we're coming for you, boy. Look at that. I wasn't going there, but let's just quickly read that. Since the Spirit brought that up, I'm just going to read that. Therefore, prophesy and say. This is exactly what I am doing today. I'm prophesying, right, to the elect and to the heathens. Thus says the Lord power, Yahweh, because they have made you desolate, Israel, and swallowed you up on every side, that you might be a possession unto the residue of the heathen, and ye are taken up in the lips of talkers, and are the infamy of the people, famous for the wrong reasons. Therefore, ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of the Lord power, Yahweh. Thus says the Lord power, Yahweh, to the mountains and to the hills, which is symbolic of the governments, right? To the rivers and to the valleys, to the desolate wastes, and to the cities that are forsaken, which became a prey and a derision, to the residue of the heathen that are round about. Listen carefully, you heathens. Therefore, thus says the Lord God, Yahweh, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, against all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their heart, and with despiteful minds to cast it up for a prey. Prophesy, therefore, concerning the land of Israel, and say unto the mountains and to the river, to the hills, and to the rivers and to the valleys, is symbolic for the governments and the rulers around the world. When it says the mountains and the hills, it's not talking about go and prophesy to actual mountains and hills. It's just this metaphoric, symbolic for governments and rulers around the world, mountains and hills and principalities. Thus says the Lord God, Yahweh, behold, I have spoken in my jealousy and in my fury. And I said those chariots are going to be part of the Most High's fury, because you have borne the shame of the heathen. Therefore, thus says the Lord God, Yahweh, I have lifted up my hand. Surely the heathen that are round about you, they shall bear the shame. They're going to bear that shame. They're going to bear that shame. The Most High is sending these chariots for them to bear that shame. So, where was I going to? I was actually going to Ezekiel chapter 1. I said, since the Spirit brought me there, boy, let's just get it. So this was a vision of the four figures that Ezekiel had at the river Cheba, Ezekiel 1:1. Now it came to pass in the 13th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives, those were the Israelites that went to captivity by the river Cheba, right, under the Babylonians then, that the heavens were opened and I saw the visions of the Most High. The heavens opened to what? To show him the chariots. In the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Joachim's captivity, the word of the Lord, Yahweh, came expressly unto Ezekiel, the priest, the son of Buzai, in the land of the Chaldeans, by the river Cheba, and the hand of Yahweh was there upon me. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind, a tic-tac, a UFO, a UAP, came out of the north, a great cloud and a fire unfolding itself, and the brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof as the color of amber, and out of the midst of the fire. So I wanted to jump down to the movement of these chariots down here. Verse 11, it says, thus were their faces, and their wings were stretched upwards. 2 wings of every one were joined one to another, and 2 covered their bodies. And they went every one straight forward. Whither the Spirit was to go, they went, and they turned not when they went. As for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like the burning of coals, like the appearance of lamps. And it went up and down amongst the living creatures, and the fire was bright. That's the lights that are coming from the chariots. And out of the fire went forth lightnings, laser beams that are coming out of the chariots. That's the lightning that came forth. And the living creatures ran and returned as the appearance of a flash of lightning. That's how fast they were moving. And the living creatures, which were the chariots, ran, because to Ezekiel, these were like living creatures, these chariots. He's never seen a motorized vehicle, you know, something flying in the air before. So to him, it was something that was living. He said they ran and returned as the appearance of what? As a flash of lightning. What did that man say? He said when the chariot dropped, when the UFO dropped from 80,000 feet to the sea level, he did it in less than a second. Less than a second it took for it to go from 80,000 feet to sea level. He says, now as I beheld the living creatures, behold, one wheel upon the earth by the living creatures with 4 faces. The appearance of the wheels and the work was like unto the color of a beryl, and the 4 had one likeness. The appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. So he saw circular ones. Zachariah saw ones that looked like tic-tacs. Oblong, he saw circular chariots like a wheel in a wheel. He says, when they went upon their 4 sides, and they turned not when they went. So they didn't need to turn left or right. They just, whatever directions the chariots moved, they just moved. Just like what this guy said, that these tic-tacs, they didn't turn like any conventional airplane or a car or a truck, you know, or a drone. They just moved. If they wanted to go left, they went left. They wanted to go right, they just went right. Up, down, whatever direction the chariots wanted to go, they just moved in that direction. They didn't need to turn like a conventional airplane or a drone or a car or a truck. That's what the guy said in the interview. He said, when the living creatures went, the wheels went up with them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Wheresoever the spirit was to go, they went, thither was the spirit to go, and the wheels were lifted up over against them. For the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. I think I might have missed a verse here. I think I missed verse 18. So lucky. It says, as for their rings, which was in the chariots, right? They were so high that they were dreadful. The rings, right? The circle, these were circular ones that he saw. And their rings were what? Were full of eyes round about them four. Those eyes were the bright lights. Let's go back to the interview. I want to bring it up to. There's a few more points I want to pull out in here before we shut this down. Yeah. Okay.
Artificial intelligence to help sort those encounters. So they are, if not as we are, as interested, but they might be even further along. And that is one of the fears of the United States, that Russia or China is further along in the studying of these materials.
Oh my goodness. So we're in another arms race here.
It is. It's a secret arms race because of the sensitivity to it. It was said back in the 50s that the UFO phenomenon is classified higher than the nuclear weapons programs within the United States. This is something that has been always held close through special access programs, through special access protection, because of the sensitivity. These technologies are not just about energy and transportation. These technologies can be weaponized.
Jeremy, one more thing before we let you go. The people who have come into contact with this stuff, you talked about that they are experiencing injuries from encounters with these anomalous vehicles. What are we talking about? What kinds of injuries are people or discomfort are they experiencing?
Right. So these are highly documented by the OSAP program. There are all sorts of radiation damage on a cellular and DNA level to people. We're talking radiation burns, but there's more exotic types of harmful effects people have experienced from being in close proximity, as they say, to a UAP or to a UFO. So OSAP studied specifically, like boots on the ground studied 42 cases where they documented that humans suffered injuries from these alleged encounters with anomalous vehicles. So I will say, though, that this does not look like an overt hostility. Much more likely, there's some sort of interaction that is going on with the propulsion systems themselves. This does not seem like an act of war. It does not seem like a directed harmful experience in most of the cases. However, there are some that do convey that. So I think it's an interaction with the propulsion system.
Yep, that's what they say, boy. Don't come too close.
UFOs are real. The big question is, who operates them? How do they work? Where do they come from? And what's the intent? And I'm as eager as you to find out. It's exciting and uncharted territory.
It's the greatest mystery we could ever report on.
And there's so much more coming for you. There's so much more coming for you, right?
Stuff. We're back in the second half of the program with Jeremy Corbell, UFO expert on Newsmaker Saturday. Back on Newsmaker Saturday, it is probably the greatest mystery out there. Are we alone? Have we been visited? It sounds like crazy talk, but it's not crazy anymore for the U.S. government. They're taking it deathly seriously because craft have been identified, videotaped, tracked by our military that no one can explain with the current knowledge of physics. UFO expert Jeremy Corbell joins us again for the second half of the program.
Well, we know exactly. All right, so I'm going to bring it up to another part of the interview here before I bring out a few more scriptures, right? So I'll bring it up here. Around here.
Lockheed Martin, that Harry Reid speculated, Senator Reid speculated, was one of the places we had some of these technologies.
It's an esoteric question, but I'm going to ask it. We're right in the middle of this Russia-Ukraine business, more kind of traditional warfare going on. Is this something where China, Russia, U.S., would start to collaborate to try to figure out what's going on if we think there may be a threat otherworldly?
Right. So this is a very interesting question because there was at times collaboration between governments to look at these materials. And we learned more about the United States UFO programs from Russian classified documents that actually George Knapp smuggled back to the United States after Glasnost and Perestroika during that time period. And we learned and we read in there that at one time we were working together. But as breakthroughs occurred in the material science aspect, we shut out other countries. So here's the deal. You'd like to think that humanity would come together and would work on the UFO problem in unison. But in fact, everybody is kind of jockeying for a technological advantage to protect their own nation and to get an upper hand. So right now, we do not, from my understanding, have any coordination between major nations. It is, in fact, a type of secret Cold War.
Yeah, I mean, this would be the ultimate kumbaya moment to bring the world together. If we thought there was something else out there that was truly an existential threat potentially, that it would bring nations together because they'd have no other choice.
Well, this is something that President Reagan said at the UN in a very famous speech that, imagine if we had a threat not from Earth, how quickly it would bond humanity together as one. The reality is that, and you can see this, unfortunately, human beings are still...
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
These craft are literally bent work on the UFO problem in unison, but looking for a technological advantage to protect their own nation and to get an upper hand. So right now, we do not, from my understanding, have any coordination between major nations. It is, in fact, a type of secret Cold War.
Yeah, I mean, this would be the ultimate kumbaya moment to bring the world together. If we thought there was something else out there that was truly an existential threat potentially, that it would bring nations together because they'd have no other choice.
Well, this is something that President Reagan said at the UN in a very famous speech that, imagine if we had a threat not from Earth, how quickly it would bond humanity together as one. The reality is that, and you can see this, unfortunately,
So let's and the thing about that is that's the prophecy. They are going to come together. They are going to come together in the war of Armageddon to fight against the Lord, all right, and the angels. And we're going to show you that in the scriptures. But first, let's refer to the speech that he said. He referred to a speech that Ronald Reagan made in the United Nations in 1986 or 1988. All right, so let's hear that speech that Ronald Reagan made about the nations coming together. Praises.
In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?
So let's quickly find that scripture. It's second. So as you heard him, right? That's what he was referring to. The speech that Ronald Reagan made, and that was the speech, right? But the Lord says, 2 Ezra chapter 13, He's gonna bring them together. He's gonna bring them together. Let's see if we can go straight to the point. And it is by start here, right? Hold on, let's go back one verse. And I spoke about this over the weekend when I was on the highways and hedges. I actually I went into 2 Ezra chapter 13. He says, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men. These are all the nations that are coming together out of a number from where? From the four winds of the heaven, four corners of the world, just like what they were referring to. Would the world come together to fight against this extraterrestrial coming in from outer space, right? To do what? To subdue the man that came out of the sea. Who's the man that's coming out of the sea? That's Yahushua coming in his chariots with the angels. That man is the Lord himself. Salaki, one second. To subdue the man, right? That's Yahushua. This is them coming together. Exactly what they're discussing. This is what they're going to do. Exactly what Ronald Reagan said. But I beheld, and lo, he had gorned himself a great mountain and flew up upon it. That great mountain is the chariot. That's what they saw. It seemed to them it was so big, like it was a mountain. And what Ezra saw in the vision that the angel gave to him when he came to him, right? When he was fasting out there. And this is the same Ezra's that was taken into captivity under the Babylonians then, under Nebuchadnezzar. This is the same Ezra's prophet from the Old Testament that we're reading about here. Ezra's, the same person. But I would have seen the region or place wherein the hill was graven and could not. That's how large the Lord's chariot was. You couldn't see where it started or where it finished. That's how great a size Yahushua's chariot was. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together, all of those nations, from the four winds of the heavens, of the earth, to all the nations, all they which were gathered together to subdue him, so they all got together. They were so afraid. They were afraid when they saw it, but they all got together, just like what they were saying. If there was a threat coming from the heavens, would all of the nations get together to fight? Well, they are, because it's prophesied in the Bible. They're going to come together to fight against the Lord. So it says, all of they were gathered together, all of the armies and the nations to subdue him. To subdue who? Yahushua, who they saw coming in the chariot, was so afraid. They were going to be terrified when they see those chariots in full living color. And yet does fight. And yet does fight. Why? Because the Most High is going to put the Spirit on them to fight his Son and the angels. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. This is Yahushua in the chariots with the angels. But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth, out of the chariot, as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. This is what's been fired. These are the laser beams that's coming out of the chariots, which they call UFOs. And they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight. All of the nations that came together to fight against the Lord and the angels. And he what? And he burned them up, every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and the smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid, Ezra says. He was afraid when he saw the destruction of them. So, let's quickly go back. A few more minutes of this interview.
Things are still very primitive. They're very primitive psychologically. We are very primitive from a technological standpoint. It's just been in the last 150 years that we've really advanced to any degree technologically. Before that, human beings were doing the same thing over and over and over.
And I've said this time and time again, and you must have heard me say this before. All right? I've said this to you time and time again on these edifications that I've been doing for years now, all right? That we have exceeded in technology only in the last 150 years. Up until that point, up until about the 1850s, the mid-19th century, we was what they call horse and carriage. So we were horse and carriage for 15, roughly, I would say, probably 10,000, 12,000 years, horse and carriage. If we be conservative, we say 15,000 years, right? Horse and carriage. For 15,000 years, horse and carriage. From the creation, going all the way back to Noah. All the way back to Adam in the garden, horse and carriage. We didn't have that technology yet. In the last 150 years, we've gone from horse and carriage to where we are today. In the last 150 years. Why is that? The Lord said, right? The Lord says, let's see. Where are you? He says here, right? And I've always said this, boy, because we're in the end. We're at the end. He says, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the words, all right? And seal the book. That's the scriptures, because it wasn't ready to be prophesied what was happening in the end times yet, during the time of Daniel. Even to the time of the end, which is what we're in now. Many shall run to and fro, right? That's what's happening. This word has gone everywhere. And knowledge shall be increased. We're at the end. The Lord has gave us that knowledge in the last 150 years to go from horse and carriage to planes flying through the sky. You think about that. 12,000 years prior to that, horse and carriage. All of a sudden, mankind just became intelligent? No, because the Lord is getting us ready for the end. We are at the end of the end. It's as simple as that. He's got to prepare his adversary for when his son and the angels come.
The kind of savage nature of humanity is that we are all looking for a leg up when it comes to combat and warfare. It has not brought us together other than through our curiosity.
Well, you think of the leap from the Wright brothers to flying to the moon. It's an incredible thing in 65, 70 years. It's unbelievable. All right, Jeremy, do the U.S. Defense Department officials believe that these pose a hostile intent? And does anybody even speculate why they might be probing civilization on this planet that's really, if this stuff is real, that's really in the dark ages? What would be the point?
Right. I mean, so first of all, the idea that we have to assess the level of threat to these unknowns, that's just a military perspective. That is a duty of our military. So absolutely, this is considered a national security threat because we don't know the intent, we don't know the capability, and we don't know the opportunity. So that's the kind of the triangle of defense that we're supposed to look at. So at this point, it is very fair to say that this is considered a national security threat. That doesn't mean that it is. However, UFOs have regularly displayed the ability to turn on or off our nuclear weapons. And this is something that is well documented and public information. There's a very famous case from Maelstrom Air Force Base where a saucer-type craft comes over the base and turns on and off the nuclear weapons. So the ability to show that overt act of power is something that is taken very seriously by our government and other governments in the world where this has happened. So that's the first aspect to what you asked, and I forgot the second.
Yeah, okay, now this is
as you heard him, they turn on and off their nuclear weapons. Why did these chariots play with the nuclear weapons? They're just testing their capabilities, because these guys cannot use those nukes until the Lord is ready. No nuclear bombs are going to be flying from the east to the west, from Russia to America, or America to Russia, to China, to Europe, or England, or France, until the Lord is ready. The angels in the chariots are just playing with these guys, just checking their systems. Boom, boom. Yep, we can turn them off, Lord. Yep, we can turn them on. We can turn them off. We can turn them off. We've got full control. Just like he said, fully documented them turning off and on the nuclear missiles. The capability of them to use them. Fully documented. All praises to Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. Oh man, we're going to shut this down in a minute. Let me grab a few of these precepts. Shalom, Amawada Bud. Beloved brother, all praises. Shalom, brother. You put up a few precepts here, so let's just grab a few of these before we shut this down. Oh, where we're going to go to. There we go. We can grab this one here. It's at 14, Exodus chapter 14, verse 19. And the angel of the Most High, Yahweh, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came to pass, and it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud and darkness to them. That cloud was a chariot. That chariot that was in that, the angel that was in that chariot was Yahweh himself. But it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all night. How is it giving light to them in the nighttime? Just like what Ezekiel said, right? What did Ezekiel say? Ezekiel said that it had rings. Where is brother Ezekiel? Where was we? Ezekiel said right here, Ezekiel, 1:18. And as for their rings, they were so high that they were dreadful, and their rings were full of eyes round about them. 4. Those eyes that was in the rings were the lights that was in the chariots. He said, he even mentioned the lights up here. He says, and as for the lightness of the living creatures, which was the chariots, their appearance was like a burning coals of fire and like the appearance of lamps. That's the lights. And it went up and down amongst the living creatures, and the fire was bright. That fire is the lights, the rings, the eyes that are in it. And out of the fire went forth lightning. The lightning is what? Is the laser beams. Don't ramp, man. Don't ramp. Then this is all coming together. This is all coming together. So when it goes back here, and it says, and it was a cloud of, and it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that one came not near the other all night. Those were the lights, the bright lights. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. That's them coming. That's salvation. That was salvation. That salvation's coming again, but in this time it's going to be the most spectacular. Numbers, Amawada Bud, Numbers chapter 12, verse 5. And the Lord Yahweh came down in the pillar of the cloud. That pillar of the cloud is the chariots, and stood in the door of the tabernacle, and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord Yahweh, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so. Why is he so? My servant Moses is not so. Who is faithful in all mine house? Who is faithful in all mine house? That's the Lord. That's the chariots. So, we're going to close on this one here. Damon 144, hopeful elect of soldier. Exodus 15:3, brother. The Lord Yahweh is a man of war. Yahweh is his name. Simple. Finish on that beautiful precept there. The Lord Yahweh is a man of war. Yahweh is his name, and he's coming to put that war on these devils. Simple as that. So today's edification was called Thy Chariots of Salvation. Thy chariots of salvation are those UFOs and UAPs that are going to be continually reported right up until the day of our deliverance and their destruction and their judgment. And then they're going to be a regular event, because they're going to be here forever amongst us. Once the Lord comes to gather the 144,000 and the 1/3, the mixed multitude that are scattered in the four corners of the world, to destroy Babylon the Great, to take down all of the nations, then they're going to just be a regular. We're going to have chariots. They're going to be here. They're going to see them every day. And they're going to be a terror to the heathens. But they're going to see them. Just like how they see airplanes flying through the skies, they're going to see chariots flying through the skies on a regular basis once the Lord and the angels come to deliver the elect and to take down the nations and to rule the earth. Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. So on that note, I pray you are edified by today's edification. Thy chariots of salvation, Yasharallah. Shalom, shalom, shalom. And as always, we give all the praises and the glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone, who are leading this word in truth and spirit and sincerity. And Salutations to my fellow Hebrew Israelite brothers out there who are plowing the fields, and to the sisters who have been edified by this truth. Keep praying, keep safe, and hold on to this truth. Simple as. Don't let them take away what we got, family. Yeah, all praises. Shalom, shalom, shalom. All praises, family.